What happens to a life's work when the only power capable of erasing it decides to do exactly that? One candle, one desk, one woman alone in the scriptorium, her fingers still dark with the ink she had pressed into parchment that morning. The smell of that ink filled the room, iron and oak gall, sharp and familiar. She had copied manuscripts since she was 11 years old. She had never signed a single one. She picked up the order and read it again. The words did not change. At dawn, the archive would burn, her records, her copies, the indexes she had built over 23 years, cross-referencing texts no one else in the monastery knew existed. All of it. The abbot's seal sat at the bottom of the page, pressed into the wax, slightly crooked. She had noticed that before, the way it always landed crooked, as if the hand that held it trembled. She set the paper down without creasing it. Outside, the bells rang for Compline. The monks moved through the corridors in the dark, sandals whispering against stone. She listened to them pass. She listened to the last footstep fade. Then the corridor went silent, and she understood something she had never examined before. She had spent her entire life making herself small enough not to be noticed. It had worked. The archive was being purged, and no one had thought to warn her because no one had remembered she existed. She was invisible. But here was the thing about being invisible. If no one remembered she was there, no one would think to look for what she had hidden. 9 letters sat on the desk beside the order. She had written them over years. Private records of decisions unmade, voices silenced, histories rewritten inside this building. She had kept them because she could not throw them away. She had never shown them to anyone. Now the question changed. Not, what will it cost me to be seen? But, what will it cost the world if no one ever sees these? She sat with that for a moment. The candle threw her shadow against the wall, large, unsteady, larger than she felt. She watched it move. Then she picked up the 9 letters and stood. The altar was forbidden to her. That rule had existed before she arrived. Women did not touch the altar. Women did not enter that space. It had never occurred to her to challenge it, the same way it had never occurred to her to sign her own name to a manuscript, or to speak during a chapter meeting, or to exist in any way that made the air shift when she entered. But the altar had one thing the archive did not. No one burned what was inside the altar. She moved through the nave without a candle. The cold rose up through the stone and into her soles. She was not afraid. She had expected to be afraid. Instead, she felt something closer to focus, the task too large to consider whole. The only thing to do was begin. She reached the altar and placed both palms flat against the stone. Cold, older than anything she had ever touched. She pressed her fingers into the seam along the base panel. It gave, just slightly, the way old things give when hands that know where to press have opened them before. Someone else had known this space. Someone else had used it this way. She was not the first. She slid the first letter into the gap and felt it settle. That was when she heard the footstep, a single step, then stillness. Someone had stopped in the doorway behind her. She did not turn around. Her hands stayed against the stone. She counted her own heartbeats, 1, 2, 3, and waited for the voice that would end everything. The voice did not come. After a long time, she heard the small sound of a heel turning on stone, then another step moving away, then nothing. She exhaled. She did not know why he had said nothing. She only knew she was still there, alone, with 8 letters left to seal. She worked faster. Her fingers moved in the dark, folding each letter small, pressing it flat, sliding it into the gap with the same care she had used pressing ink into parchment her whole life. The same hands, the same precision, a different kind of record. The smell reached her before the sound did, burning leather, the sharp tang of a book cover taking heat, different from wood smoke, unmistakable once you had smelled it. The archive was on the other side of the building. The fire had started early. Someone had not waited for dawn. She counted the letters already placed, 8. The 9th was on the desk in the scriptorium. She ran. The corridor was dark, but the air had changed. Warmer, thinner, carrying something acrid. She reached the scriptorium and found the 9th letter on the edge of the desk. She picked it up. Then, because she did not know why, she picked up the order too. She ran back. The altar was as she had left it, the base panel still ajar. She slid the 9th letter in. Then she pressed the panel back with both palms, leaning her full weight into it until it locked. The cut on her right hand she did not notice until later. A clean line across 2 fingers from the edge of the stone. She had felt nothing. She stood and looked at the altar. What she had placed inside would not save her. The fire was not coming for her. She understood that. She was nothing to them. She had always been nothing to them. That was the whole problem, and tonight, the whole solution. She walked back through the nave and sat down on the cold floor outside the chapter room, where any monk passing might see her, not hiding, not inside the altar, not anywhere she should not be, visible. In the morning, when the smoke settled and the archive lay in ash, no one wrote down what had happened to her. There was nothing to write. She had never been in the official record to begin with. She vanished the way she had lived, without a trace. But the letters did not vanish. Centuries later, during a restoration of the altar's base, a mason found a small cache of folded parchment tucked inside the stone. 9 letters, sealed and stacked with care, the ink faded to the color of old rust, but still readable. Records of decisions unmade, voices silenced, histories altered, documents that changed what scholars believed about a period, about who held power and how it moved. And beneath the 9 letters, one more sheet, smaller than the rest, not a letter, not a record, a name, written in the same hand as all the others, added last in the final available space. As if the woman who placed it there had decided, at the last moment, that invisibility had served its purpose. She had done what she came to do. Now she wanted to be found.